Hello everyone, AMHarbinger here, and Crackdown 3 is, well, it's a disappointment. With Nintendo Switch and the PlayStation 4 cranking out incredible exclusives like Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I know it released for the Wii U, but everyone bought it for the Nintendo Switch. And with Sony releasing God of War, Marvel Spider-Man, Uncharted, Ratchet & Clank PS4, and so many incredible exclusives, the Xbox One needed a massive hit. Granted, they did have Gears of War 4 and Forza Horizon, which were fantastic games, but when Crackdown 3 was announced, everyone was excited for this. Even people who've never played or even heard of this franchise wanted to see this game release, and after it released kind of silently with very little marketing material, especially in a crowded month with Jump Force, Metro Exodus, and even the Resident Evil 2 DLC to Ghost Survivors, many were worried that this game would not perform as well as they were hoping, and their fears were absolutely right. This game is a mediocre mess. Even by modern generation standards, it's below mediocre. So yeah, Crackdown 3, it's not worth playing unless you have an Xbox Game Pass, which might have been the reason Microsoft even churned out this title. First off, I know nothing about Crackdown. I never played the first two games, even though I've heard of them. The first one was mainly released to push out the Halo 3 beta promotion, and the second game, well, the only thing I remember about that game was that it had zombies that come out at night. So this game apparently takes place years after the events of the second game. An evil organization by the name of Terra Nova had taken over the city of New Providence, and it's your job to kill all the leaders and return leadership to the people. That's it. There is nothing eventful that happens throughout the story. It is the most basic evil organization and stop them using the good guys story that I have played in recent memory. So if the story sucks, you're probably asking, well, how's the gameplay? Well, frankly, the gameplay is pretty standard. The shooting and the superhero powers are done pretty well. You can jump, you can leap, you can take lots of damage, and you can shoot with about 20 different weapons. Most of the weapons are obsolete with the exception of the pulse rifle, which literally shreds through enemies. Driving is completely meaningless once you get the double jump, and you'll do the same thing over and over. The entire game consists of you taking over bases, then killing the boss who controls those bases, and doing that over and over again until you finally reach the final boss and kill her. That's all you really do. There is nothing that really deviates from that formula, and it's kind of shocking considering that New Providence does have a lot of great locations, but the gameplay doesn't take advantage of any of that. You just kill key targets and move on to the next, and that's really it. Another very strange inclusion is the amount of collectibles. You would assume that they would have learned their lesson from the first two Crackdowns, because I did do a little bit of research into those games, and apparently the number one thing people remember about those games was the horrid amount of collectibles. And here, there are just as many. It adds to the tedium because all you really do is collect little agility orbs, which serve much more greater purpose than any other experience because they grant you the double jump and air dash, which is very convenient when moving throughout the city. And then you collect agent DNA to unlock more agents, you destroy towers in order to remove propaganda posters, and so many other types of busy work. And that's a predominant reason Crackdown 3 feels so tiresome. You're just doing busy work after busy work to eventually reach the final boss, and then you do more busy work in order to get more powerful to, again, do more busy work. Think Fallout 76, but without any of the excitement of discovering new locations. I will say that the best part of the entire game were the bosses, but again, the game is so damn easy, even on the most hardest difficulty, that you'll basically just mow through all the enemies. They never really introduce any very challenging enemies, and you'll face the same ones over and over again. The momentum of fighting enemies is actually pretty good. You see, you replenish your health and shields by killing enemies, so it constantly encourages you to keep killing and mowing through enemies. But because of this system, you'll fight so many enemies at once that eventually they become meaningless targets. And towards the end of the game, the only real challenge that I faced, even on the hardest difficulty, was the final boss. But that's because they artificially increased the level of difficulty by making you fight much more enemies and add in every cheap variant attack you could think of. The final boss will shoot large bombs that have huge radiuses, and then they will also shoot these little, I would say, area of effect bomb items that diminish how much area you can actually travel on. So it's artificial difficulty at its finest. There is a cooperative option if you want to bring a friend along. It does make collecting the large amount of collectibles much more easier done, especially the drive-in ones, where you could just literally throw your teammate into the drive-in circles. But for the most part, I didn't hate my friends enough to bring them along for the ride. The multiplayer, if you can even call it that, is a tragic collection of everything that you can think that's wrong about a competitive multiplayer. Basically, there are two modes: kill confirmed, which is agent hunt, and domination, which is territories. 2 teams of 5 compete until the score is filled. That is all you do. There's no leveling system, so everything is kept within even grounds. However, by some questionable decisions, they included the ability to lock on to enemies. That's right, you can lock on to enemies, and on top of that, you can also see their locations on anywhere of the map. This is a competitive mode, and they put in-game cheats that are accessible to everyone. No competitive game would actually put something like this within their mode if they didn't think it was a total joke. So the idea of skill is completely removed. It all relies on who targets who first and who has the most powerful combination of weapons. Basically, the pistol and the shotgun can tear through enemies like they're nothing, and you just switch out to the rocket launcher and kill them relatively easily. Most matches play out one side as the entire team just starts ganging up on one player and then keeps moving on to the next. So the second your allied players start trickling in one at a time, you're basically done for, as the enemy players will just gang up on that one person, lock onto them, and murder them within seconds. There's really no strategy here, just gang up on one player, kill them, and move on to the next. And since 500 gamerscore achievements require for you to endure this horrible tragedy of a multiplayer mode, prepare for a lot of angry matches. Crackdown 3 feels like a generic open world game, but even by modern standards, it falls short of everything you could possibly imagine. The entire game is about completing busy work as you go through the large grind to just reach the final boss. The multiplayer is just a tragic combination that feels like an overglorified tech demo, as players just shoot each other using the lock-on mechanic and overwhelm the opposing team. There's very little redeeming efforts into this game, and I can't imagine anyone paying full price for this game. I will say that the best part of Crackdown 3 comes from the actual Xbox Game Pass. After purchasing it, I actually find a lot more value in the fact that it gave me so many incredible games, and the whole purpose I purchased this subscription service was to play Crackdown 3, so I assume that was Microsoft's intention from the beginning. Here's this AAA game that were just developed and released. Oh, it's not that great. Check out all these other incredible games like Rocket League and Ori the Blind Forest, and I was actually more enticed to play those games. After I beat this, I was like, oh look, there are all these other games on Xbox Game Pass, so they've made me into a customer by basically dangling a mediocre AAA experience in front of me and then saying, well, we have all these other games. So it does work in that way, that it encouraged me to now fully invest into Xbox Game Pass. But nevertheless, Crackdown 3, don't buy it. Unless you have Xbox Game Pass, then it's worth giving it a try. Or even invest into Xbox Game Pass. It's $2 for the next 2 months, so you'll save $59. So there you go. Crackdown 3, not that great. Microsoft needs to work harder in their AAA exclusives, especially if they want to encourage people to buy an Xbox One.